In this video, we'll walk through MARI's user interface and learn some best practices for accessing the things that we'll need when painting. Alright, great. So what I've got here is the Assassin project we created in our last video, and I wanted to just take a moment in this video to walk through MARI's user interface and talk about where the things that you're going to be accessing on a regular basis are hidden. So first off, this is probably going to look a little different than what you see on your screen. My user interface had to be tailored just a little bit for the sake of the video. MARI's default layout does not like to be shrunken down into the height of my recording area, which is 720 pixels, so I needed to move some of these palettes on the right down. Yours are probably split into a grouping here, kind of on the top of this right half of the screen, and then another grouping below that. I've combined those two for the sake of this video. I'll show you how I did that here in just a moment, but the first thing I want to tell you is that your layout for the MARI user interface is something, again, it's highly customizable, but you can also reset it back to factory settings at any time underneath the View menu by choosing the default layout. Now, if you have different layouts, you can also save those layouts here, or you can load a different layout. Let's go ahead and kind of talk about what's going on in the interface. Again, at the very top, we're going to have our menu bar, very similar to a number of different applications. You can see there are quite a few things that are located inside these menus, inside the menu bar. Now, the cool thing about MARI is adding something like a channel, for example, can be executed here from the menu bar, but that can also be executed from a palette or another location here inside of the interface. So there's not usually just one place to execute a certain function. So those are the menus in the menu bar. Below that, we have kind of this area right here, and then even this area here and this area right down here. These are all called toolbars. And again, these are the ones that should load up on your screen as well. Now, there's a number of different toolbars here. What I want to show you is if we right-click on the toolbars, you'll see this menu comes up here. Now, all of these things with the icon next to them, these are not toolbars. These are palettes. It's these guys over here. We'll talk more about those in just a moment. But down below the palettes, you should see some options here for the different toolbars. Each one with a little black check mark by it is currently visible. If we wanted to, we could simply hide those just like so. And you can see I've hidden that project toolbar. Go ahead and bring that back. Now, anywhere you see this little vertical double line, this is going to be kind of the beginning of a toolbar. And you can actually mouse over these guys and you can move these toolbars around. Let's say this guy right here. We wanted to move him maybe down here. We could do just that. You can see how easy it is to move and redock toolbars pretty much anywhere inside of MARI's user interface. I'm going to go ahead and pull that one right back up where I started. Now, the toolbars up here at the top are great. One I wanted to point out to you particularly is this Tool Properties toolbar. It starts right here. Now, this toolbar is going to change depending on the current tool that you have selected. Here is the Tools toolbar, and you can see it actually has a little double arrow right down here, indicating that there is more that is available inside this toolbar that's currently not visible. If I were to click that, you can see there's actually even more tools, as well as a foreground and background swatch here. So let's go ahead and take this tool we have selected, for example, the paintbrush, and you can see inside my Tool Properties toolbar, we have different options specifically for the paintbrush. It even says paint right here. But if we came over and grabbed our selection tool, you can see that word changes from paint to select, and now the options inside that Tool Properties toolbar are completely different. And this is going to work identically for any tool that we have selected. You can see here, name of the tool and all of the options for that. Name of the tool, all of the options. So this is a very much a customizable toolbar based on the tool you have selected. Now, again, I don't want to go through each and every one of these toolbars. A lot of them are very specific. Some of them relate to this project. Some of them do not. So instead of talking individually about these toolbars, I do want to, again, mention here the Tools toolbar. This is one you'll use quite a lot. It has all of your tools in it. You can kind of envision this as a toolbox inside of MARI. And again, just like applications such as Photoshop, we have a foreground and background swatch here. And this is going to work actually very similar to Photoshop. We could actually switch those colors places simply by clicking on this button here, or the X key on your keyboard. We can reset the colors back to the default scheme by clicking this button here. All right, great. So let's talk about this area right below the toolbars. This is going to be your canvas. Now, the canvas is right now displaying our current model that we have loaded into this project. And we can orbit around this model and we can paint if we're ready to paint. And again, this is going to be very similar to other 3D applications. Right now, I'm holding Alt and left clicking to sort of tumble. We can Alt right click to zoom in and out. And we can Alt middle click to pan. So we can also Control R and grab to rotate, just like so. Those are the basic navigation controls here inside of MARI's canvas. Now, the view that we're currently looking through for the canvas, or the camera, if you will, is the orthographic view. That means there's no perspective being calculated here, so we're able to paint and not have to worry about perspective skewing anything. Now, we can look through a perspective camera if we want to, just simply by clicking on that perspective tab. And you can see here we have a little bit different view, something that has a little bit of field of view being used in terms of what we're seeing on the canvas. We can actually control the amount of the field of view right here. Now, I don't usually paint in this view, but it is available to you if you want to use it. Now, one thing that is important to understand is that we do have an asset here that has a UV layout tied to it. It means it's been sliced up and flattened out into texture space. We can actually come in and look at that UV layout on the UV tab. And you can see once I get here, we've got a ton of UV shells that have been laid out. Now, MARI is a multi-tile texture compatible application, meaning that it works with multiple texture spaces. So inside of Maya, if you've used a single texture space or whatever 3D application you're used to using, you've probably used this space right here. But instead of making this extremely high resolution for a character like this one, by packing all of the geometry onto a single texture space, we now can spread this out over a number of different texture spaces like I have here, and we can assign smaller resolutions to those based on how large that geometry is, how much screen space that geometry will take up. So in this case, you can see right now each one of my texture spaces has a resolution of 4096 by 4096 assigned to it, 4K. Now, if we were to come in here, and let's see if we can't select, we'll just use both our UV and orthographic view at the same time. Maybe our knife. Let's go ahead and select the knife. The knife is relatively small on screen. Do we really need 4K resolution for this particular patch right here? By the way, that's what MARI refers to each of these, is it calls them patches. Well, maybe not. Maybe we could get away with something like 2K or even a 1K patch for a knife this small. So this is all something that multi-tile texturing allows us to customize here inside of MARI. Now, moving on here, we do have, again, a split orthographic and UV view that we saw before, and we have our Projects tab, which we have seen in the previous lesson. Now, over here, we have our palettes, and again, there are a lot of them here. You can see each one of these palettes is indicated by a tab here at the bottom of this group of palettes. Now we can also move these around simply by grabbing this sort of grayscale gradient bar at the top and just dragging to the left, for example, and we can dock this just like we did with the toolbars. Let me just dock this palette right here, and I'll go ahead and drag the image manager over and dock it over here as well. Fantastic. So these palettes are going to be your best friend. You can close them out if they are taking up too much of your screen real estate. Maybe we don't need the image manager. Maybe we don't need the shelf. We can close those two out here, and we can start to sort of maximize our screen real estate. Now we can get back to those palettes at any time under the View menu and Palettes right here. Or, as we saw a moment ago, we can right-click on our toolbars and we can quickly gain access to, again, say maybe the Image Manager simply by selecting it from that list. And you can see it comes right back up where we had it. All right, great. So this is the MARI user interface, highly customizable for you, the artist, to basically set it up in a way that you're comfortable with it for painting your own personal projects. All right, let's go ahead and move on to our next video and learn a little bit about managing geometry inside of our MARI projects.